Hi, this is John Pennington. Here coming back with the continuation of the 3D Code experience. We're doing this for the members of the Cubify Fans blog. And anyways, I want to start off by going over the user interface. This is 3D Code version 4. It's an excellent piece of software for modeling. Anyways, as well as doing some other incredible things. For right now, I'm going to concentrate on modeling in this portion of the 3D Code experience. Okay, when you start up, this is what it's going to look like. For some of you, yours may look a little different because you've been playing around with it. In order to get back to be on the same page, go up here to Windows and click on it, and then go down to where it says Restore, Reset All Pages to Default. Click that, and then it'll get us to where we look pretty much the same. 3D Code is very customizable, and as a result, it's very easy to make some changes. And in order to understand where I'm going with things, we want to be in this place. And so every time I start a tutorial, I'm going to reset things this way, because even I have my own customization that I use. Later on in the tutorials, we'll talk about customizing and what I use. Okay, so it comes up in this mode. Okay, for now, we're going to stay in the sculpting areas. I'm going to start with voxel sculpting, and we'll migrate eventually to the other type of sculpting. Once you've clicked on voxel sculpting, then you got all these options up here as the different ways you can start out. For now, we're going to just click on this middle sphere so that we can talk. Okay, and what is interesting is that 3D Code, like many programmers, have decided to follow a similar format that most users are familiar with, and that would be one you'll find in all the basic art programs. The layout, all the tools and options are in similar places. Okay, so here on the right hand side you've got your tools, and you can scroll through those with the mouse wheel, or you can hold the left middle mouse button down and scroll through those, and then just click on the one that you want. As you click on them, different things come up. You've got a tool options panel over here that comes up on some. It's not there for everything, so just know that if you're missing that box, it's not because you've lost it, it's because it's not available for that tool. Okay, so those are the tools. Now think of your tools much the same way you would if you were working with real clay. You'd have tools that can shape, you can have tools that can cut, to push, one to pull, and you'd have some that do some detailing. All of these tools fall into those categories. Okay, for right now I'm clicking on Grow just because I want to talk about the interface more than the tools. If you go up here to the top left underneath File, you have the word Grow. That just reminds you that you're on that tool, because if you scroll through you can't see what you're on. You just quickly look up here and you know that this is the Grow tool. Okay, right across from that are the options or the settings for that tool. So I'm on the Grow tool. I can invert it, which means instead of growing it would be shrinking. So if I'm using a push tool, instead of pushing it would be pulling. If I'm using a cutting tool, instead of cutting away, it would actually be adding to the model. Okay, I can do a steady stroke, which allows me to keep a straighter line. The radius, that has to do with the size of the actual tip of the tool. Your fall off, which has to do with the hardness or the softness of the edges. Your depth, which has to do with how deep it's going to go into the clay, or if it's in a reverse mode instead of or a tool such as this one, which is growing, the depth will have to do with how far out it grows. And we have a smoothing effect. I like to keep my smoothing, unless I'm being aggressive, anywhere between 3 and 5, and I'll explain that later as we get into the use of the tools. Below the options you have five rooms. You have a paint room, you have a tweak room, you have a retopo room, a UV room, a sculpt room, and a render room. We're going to talk more about those rooms later on in detail as we learn the rooms one at a time. As you notice, a window just popped up. I move my mouse around, and this particular program is very quick to pop things up. So if that happens, just move your mouse off the window and it'll go away. Okay, so we're in the sculpt room. We're in voxel mode. We know that we're in voxel mode because we go down here and we can see a V in our layers. Okay, all right. On the right hand side is what's called the panels. So these over here are panels. Over there you'll have your resources, much like you would in Photoshop or GIMP or any of those programs. And there you might have stencils, you might have colors, you might have patterns, presets. And so those are in your panels over here. You also have a panel for layers. This one's called Vox Tree, and that tree is the layers of the model that you're working on. It always starts out with root. You can rename layers by clicking on them. So like if I'm working on a car, I could name this the door, or the hood, or the wheel, okay, if I wanted to. Okay, and that helps to keep some structure. The more organized you are, the easier it is for you to get back to places when you need to. Okay, so those are your panels, and you're going to learn more about them as we go through the modeling, because it's so much easier to learn as you're doing than it is to try to get all this in your head. If I were to try to take the time and explain every feature of 3D Coat to you right now, I think I'd lose you, and you'd never learn to use a tool that I think is very powerful. Okay, back up to the top, off to the right, on the same level as the rooms, just off to the center, you have the navigational tools. Okay, starts off with the sun, and that actually has to do with the lighting of the whole room. And if you click your left mouse button down and you drag it up or down, you can change or left or right in this one, I apologize. You can change the brightness or the darkness of the room. I have mine set to 0. The next one over actually has to do with lighting also, but it's the light that shines directly on the object. I was set at 59. And the next one over has to do with the angle of the light coming in on the model. This one you don't get a number to indicate, but as you're looking at your model, you can see where the shadows are. I like to kind of keep the shadows in the back for modeling purposes. However, when I render, I sometimes will bring those shadows back. Alrighty, let me go back up here. I got my grow tool selected, and I'm going to just quickly do something without explaining a whole lot. I want to change that so that you can understand these next tools. Okay, now this third tool is a partial circle with a arrow on it. That's a rotational tool. You click your left mouse button on it and it rotates. If I hadn't drawn that little extrusion on the on that ball, you wouldn't know that I'm rotating. Okay, so that rotates the object that I'm working on. Rotates the room, not the object. It's important we understand the difference. When you're up here, you're not rotating your model, you're rotating your view. Much in the way that I could go into a car showroom, I can walk the whole way around the car. That's what you're doing here, is you're rotating around. Okay, and this next one over here, which is 4 arrows with a cross, that's your pan indicator, and you hold the left mouse button down and you can go up, down, left, or right, and just move the way things are oriented in your view. Go to the next one, it's a magnifying glass, and that's kind of obvious. We're going to hold the left mouse button down, up or down, and we get closer or further away. These tools can work a little fast. You're going to use them in unison, meaning I'm going to zoom and then I'm going to pan. Now I'm in an area where I can work a little bit closer and I can see what's going on a little bit better. Click on the All button. That focuses on everything that is in that current layer. Click on the Pen button, and that actually puts the focus where I last used the pen. Back to the All. This here button over here, to circle with the line slashed through it, kind of looks like a no parking or a no smoking sign symbol. You click that, and that takes you right back to the original camera position, which is kind of back a little bit, gives you a wider view. We want to work close up, so I'm going to click All, or I'm going to click Pen, just depending on what I'm doing. Next to that is what's called the orthographic view, and or the orthographic and perspective selection. And when you're looking at your model, a lot of times you're going to want to see it in a perspective, but when you're working on it, you will generally want to work on it in the orthographic. The importance of that has to do with the tools working correctly when you're working on them. Because if I were to cut this shape, I'm in a different angle than I am here. Okay, so it's very important that we understand this, and we'll talk about it more as we actually use the tools so you can see it in use. Next to that is a 3D grid. You click on that, it puts the grid of the 3 dimensions on there. That actually helps you to understand some spatial relation. You can leave that on or off depending on what's easier for you as you're modeling. The axis is those lines that I had on there. They're colored. The blue one is your Z-axis, the red one is your X-axis, and the green one is your Y-axis. Important to know those in relationship to your model, as well as in relationship to the room. When you spin the room, those actually are what you're spinning, because now my Z is over here. Okay, it's important to know that, because as you're shaping your model, a lot of time the Z will be the face and the back side of the front and the back of your model. And so as you spin it, if you don't know what axis you're working on, you could accidentally work on the wrong thing, and then you'd have to rotate your model to make it fit the view correctly. Okay, we can full screen if necessary. Over here to camera, these are shortcuts. You can customize this to work like some other software that you're familiar with. You can actually put some of your own custom navigation in here. I do use this. I'll show it later. Background, I can set some things, like I can make the top color, the bottom color, certain colors. And actually this is nice, because then when I'm rotating and those colors come up, I know immediately where I'm at. So click one of these below. I can go front, back, left, right, top, or bottom for quick to them. The nice thing is I can also use a shortcut, like the number 4 was for the left. The number 6 is the right. I'm using my number pad on my keyboards. 2 takes me back to the front. 8 takes me to the back. And the reason I like to use this on the keypad is because they're set up that way. 2 being closer to you, front. 8, front, back, left, right. Okay. And I also have top, number 8, and number 1 is bottom. Okay. So I can quickly go between those views, or I can go up here and I can click on them. I can add a shortcut. Let's say that I'm working on this this model and I need to keep coming back to this, okay? But I also want to reference this from the way it looks from the front, okay? So I can actually create a shortcut for this. I go over here to camera and I click add shortcut. Now that's in there, okay? So 2 takes me to my front. The control and the left or right button takes me through my shortcuts. Okay, so there I am, quickly going back and forth between my preset, my front, my preset, my front. Okay, and those are saved with your project. They're not permanent to. They're not like presets that you're always going to have every time you do a new model. Every time you do a new one, those are cleared out, and your shortcuts are saved with the project. Okay. We can tell it how we want it to rotate. Rotate around current pick means like if I'm working on this spot here, and now I want to rotate. You see how it's rotating. Whoops. Rotate around current pick. Now it's rotating around that last spot that I worked on. See how it's flipping up and down, but it's based on this point right here. I'm going to pick over here. That just means wherever I clicked the tool the last time. Okay. And again, it's rotating on that little node. Okay, I can tell it to rotate around the world center. Everywhere that the axis is crossed is the world center, and so now it's rotating around the middle of the room. The last draw point, which is very close to pick point. The pick point actually has to do with the layer that you're working on. We'll talk about more about those in detail as we come up. The object bounding box, there actually is a box around all of these that we don't see, and you can create a custom point. We'll get into those as we need them. Now, most of these navigational tools can be shortcutted using just your mouse. Okay, so if I go back to my view on my pen and I click with my mouse but not on the object over here in the empty space, I click with the left mouse button, I'm in rotate mode. I'm currently clicking around, rotating around the axis. Okay, that was where I had last selected. If I click with the middle mouse button or the wheel pressed down, I can pan. This is a lot quicker than going up in here and doing it. If I use the right mouse button, I have the ability to zoom in and out. Okay, those are shortcuts. Now there are certain options where that won't work. Like if I go into my brush tips, which is called the E panel. This has to do with strokes. Go up here to right above the tools, click on the current tip that's selected. Each one you click will change the shape. Now these first 4 have to do with tablets. This 5th one is best for use with a mouse because everything's constant. You could use it with a tablet, but most of the time you want the tablet for the sensitivity of the pressure of the tip. We can change other tips here, but when we get over here to these ones, like this is a square selection, when I get into the empty space, if I draw, it's going to draw the square, and it grew a square based on the size of the square that I just drew. Okay, again, we'll learn more about tools later as we go through those features. What I'm trying to show you is that the navigational tools aren't working because I have a special stroke mode. Okay, now if I hold the Alt button, now I can use the navigational tools and not the lasso tools to do that stuff. Another thing is if you don't want to hold the Alt button, you can actually go to this, see this little box that's in the middle of our screen here? You can click outside of it, so this outside perimeter, if I click with my left mouse button, I'm still rotating, or I'm panning, or I'm zooming in and out. And so those are nice little shortcuts that you have. Okay, that pretty much explains about everything you need to know about the user interface. We're going to come back in a few minutes and we're going to go over a project. I've decided to do a very simple project to just get you something to cut your teeth on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through creating a pencil holder with some embellishments on it. Okay, so I hope you'll rejoin me in the next video, and you have a great day, and thank you for watching the 3D Code experience with Cubify fans. You have a great day. Bye-bye.